People who play the victim to avoid responsibility can easily trap you in their cycle if you're not careful. At first, their stories might sound convincing. Something always seems to be going wrong in their life. Someone else is always at fault, and the world just never seems fair to them. You feel sympathy because you see someone who appears hurt, struggling, or misunderstood. Your natural instinct is to step in, to reassure them, to help carry their load. But soon you start noticing a pattern. No matter what you do, nothing changes. The same problems repeat, the same complaints resurface, and the same blame is pointed outward. The victim mindset is powerful because it shifts all responsibility away from the person who holds it. They never have to own their choices, their habits, or their mistakes, because it's always someone else's doing. If a relationship fails, it's the other person's fault. If a job doesn't work out, it's because the boss didn't like them. If a goal isn't reached, it's because life was unfair. With this mindset, they don't have to take accountability, and that's exactly why they cling to it so tightly. Responsibility means effort. Responsibility means change. Responsibility means growth. Playing the victim lets them avoid all of that. When you constantly step in to help someone like this, you unintentionally reinforce their pattern. You validate their belief that they are powerless and need saving. You become the one who listens to their excuses, who comforts their blame, and who reassures them, even when they're the ones refusing to change. They don't need solutions, they need someone to confirm their narrative. And the more you play along, the more trapped you become in their cycle. The draining part about dealing with people like this is realizing that your help is never enough. You can give advice, offer support, even fix temporary problems, but the victim mindset will always find another issue to latch onto. They thrive on staying stuck because being stuck gets them attention. It gets them sympathy. It keeps them from ever having to face the hard truth that their life won't change until they do. And instead of gratitude, what you often receive in return is more negativity, more complaints, and sometimes even resentment if you suggest they take ownership. What's dangerous about these dynamics is that they can make you question yourself. If you get frustrated, they'll say you don't understand them. If you encourage responsibility, they'll say you're being harsh. They will twist your genuine attempt to help into yet another reason why the world is against them. And suddenly, you're caught defending yourself, when in reality, all you did was refuse to carry their blame for them. There's a big difference between someone going through a tough time and someone committed to playing the victim. Tough times pass, struggles can be worked through, and real accountability leads to growth. But the victim mindset doesn't allow for that because growth would mean giving up the comfort of excuses. Growth would mean admitting they had more control than they pretended to. And for some, that realization is too heavy to face. When you recognize this pattern, the healthiest thing you can do is step back, not in cruelty, not in indifference, but in wisdom, because every time you rescue someone from their own responsibility, you rob them of the chance to face it. And facing it is the only way they will ever learn, ever change, or ever take ownership of their life. If they choose not to, then that choice is theirs, not yours to carry. People who only take and never give can be some of the most draining individuals you'll ever deal with. At first, it doesn't always look like taking. It might come across as a favor here, a request there, a small need you can easily fill. You tell yourself it's just being kind, being supportive, being the kind of person who shows up for others. And maybe the first few times, it feels good. But over time, a pattern starts to show. Their needs are endless, their asks never stop, and somehow the relationship shifts into something unbalanced where you're always pouring out and they're always collecting. The problem with people like this is they see generosity as a resource to exploit instead of a gift to appreciate. They don't think about the cost to you, they only think about the benefit to them. When you're around someone like this, you'll notice your energy starts to shrink, your patience wears thin, and even your willingness to help others begins to suffer. What's worse is they usually don't even notice what they're doing. To them, it's just normal. They expect you to show up, they expect you to sacrifice, and they expect you to continue without question. There's nothing wrong with helping someone in need. That's part of being human, part of building healthy connections. But healthy help is mutual. There's give and take. Sometimes you're the one lifting, and sometimes you're the one being lifted. The imbalance shows up when you realize they're never the one offering a hand back. They're quick to call when they're in trouble, but silent when you're the one struggling. They have time to lean on you, but never time to stand beside you. That's not a friend, that's not a partner, that's not even support. It's dependence. And the thing about constant takers is they will drain you until you're empty. They will leave you questioning your own worth, wondering if you're too harsh for finally saying no, or if you're selfish for setting boundaries. They will make you feel guilty for protecting your own peace, because their survival depends on convincing you that your role is to provide. But it's not. Your role in life is not to be someone else's endless source of energy. Your role is to take care of yourself so you can genuinely connect with the people who understand balance. When you help someone who only takes, you're not helping them grow. You're actually enabling their dependence. You're teaching them that they don't have to stand on their own feet because you'll always be the crutch. And once someone learns that, they stop trying. They stop developing resilience. They stop building accountability. And they stop recognizing that relationships are meant to be two-sided. Your help, instead of being a gift, becomes the very thing that keeps them stuck. The hardest part about dealing with people like this is recognizing that your compassion is being misused. You want to believe the best in people. You want to think your kindness will inspire them to be different. But people who only take rarely change because change requires self-awareness, and self-awareness requires them to see how much they've leaned on others. As long as you keep providing, they have no reason to look inward. You can love someone and still say no. You can care about them and still refuse to let them drain you. That doesn't make you unkind, it makes you wise. Because every ounce of energy you waste on someone who only takes is energy you could have invested in people who truly value you, the ones who show up for you, the ones who care about your well-being, the ones who don't see you as a resource, but as a person. And when you start shifting your energy away from the takers, you realize just how heavy they've been all along. People who constantly create drama are some of the most exhausting people you can ever allow into your life. They seem to thrive on chaos, and if there isn't any around, they'll make sure to stir some up. At first, it might look like they just get caught in unfortunate situations or that they simply have bad luck with people. But after a while, you notice the common thread. Everywhere they go, problems follow. Arguments spark where there shouldn't be any. Small issues get blown out of proportion, and peace never lasts when they're around. Drama creators feed off attention. They don't just want to be noticed. They want to be at the center of the storm. The more eyes on them, the more alive they feel. They'll exaggerate conflicts, twist words, or create tension between people just to keep the spotlight. And while you might think you can calm them down or bring reason into the mix, what you're really doing is stepping into the arena they've built. They don't want solutions because solutions end the show. They want reactions because reactions keep the show alive. The cost of helping someone like this is heavy. Your energy gets pulled into arguments that don't belong to you. Your emotions get tied to conflicts you didn't start. You end up defending yourself for things you never said or did, all because drama has a way of pulling innocent people into its orbit. And the more you invest, the more you realize nothing ever truly gets resolved. Even if one issue dies down, another quickly rises. That cycle is endless because drama isn't a problem to them. It's fuel. What makes it even more dangerous is that drama doesn't just affect you, it affects your environment. It seeps into your relationships, your work, your peace of mind. Being around constant drama makes you feel like you're always walking on eggshells, waiting for the next explosion. It drains your patience, it clouds your clarity, and it distracts you from focusing on the things that actually matter. And after a while, you realize you've been living in reaction mode instead of leading your own life. Helping people who create drama only keeps the cycle alive. They're not looking for guidance or support, they're looking for an audience. The more you play the role of mediator, problem solver, or peacemaker, the more they'll rely on you to feed into their chaos. What they truly need is not your help, but your distance. Because distance is what breaks the cycle. It removes the fuel, the reaction, the attention they're craving. And without that, drama has no stage to grow on. People who refuse to change their toxic habits are some of the hardest people to help because no amount of advice, love, or support can force transformation on someone who doesn't want it. At first, you might believe that with enough patience or encouragement, they'll eventually see the damage they're causing to themselves and others. You hope that your example, your care, or your consistency will inspire them to shift. But toxic habits don't just disappear because someone else wishes they would. They disappear only when the person living with them decides enough is enough. Until then, nothing changes. These habits can take many forms. It might be dishonesty, constant negativity, laziness, manipulation, or even more destructive patterns like addictions. Whatever shape they take, the common thread is that the person refuses accountability. They either justify their actions, downplay the impact, or shift the blame onto everyone else. When you try to step in and help, they may nod, agree, or even promise to do better. But promises without action are empty, and patterns without ownership never break. You'll find yourself hearing the same excuses on repeat, watching the same behavior resurface, and realizing that your help has become a revolving door. The draining part of trying to help someone like this is that you end up putting in all the effort while they stay comfortable in their dysfunction. You rearrange your life, offer emotional support, sacrifice time and energy, but nothing sticks because they don't want it to. Change requires discomfort, and for some people, staying toxic feels easier than facing the hard work of growth. They might even resent you for pointing out their habits, making you the enemy instead of seeing the truth. That resentment becomes a shield, protecting their behavior and keeping you at arm's length whenever you challenge it. It's painful to watch someone sabotage themselves, but even more painful when their habits start affecting you directly. Their negativity becomes your burden. Their dishonesty chips away at your trust. Their lack of discipline creates instability in your relationship. Before long, you're carrying stress that doesn't belong to you, all because you hoped your help would inspire change. And when nothing improves, you're left feeling drained, unappreciated, and sometimes even guilty for not being able to fix them. The reality is that you can't change someone who doesn't want to change. You can't outlove a toxic habit, you can't outgive it, and you can't outsacrifice it. All you can do is recognize the pattern and decide how much of your life you're willing to let it control. Helping someone who refuses to change doesn't save them. It only delays the moment when they're forced to face themselves. And until they reach that point, your effort will never be enough. People who manipulate your kindness for their gain are some of the most difficult to spot, because they don't always come across as obvious users. They know how to wrap their requests in flattery, how to play on your emotions, and how to make you feel like helping them is not only the right thing to do, but almost an obligation. They'll remind you of times you were generous before, they'll appeal to your sense of loyalty, or they'll position themselves as helpless in a way that tugs at your heart. At first, it feels like compassion, but slowly you begin to realize you're not being appreciated, you're being played. Manipulators are skilled at finding your soft spots. If you pride yourself on being reliable, they'll lean into that. If you value empathy, they'll exaggerate their struggles to keep your sympathy. If you hate conflict, they'll use subtle pressure to get what they want without ever asking directly. What makes it tricky is that they don't usually take in obvious ways. They craft their words, their timing, and even their body language so that by the time you say yes, it feels like it was your choice all along. But inside, you feel that uneasy pull, the sense that you've been cornered into giving more than you wanted to. The danger of helping someone like this is that your kindness becomes a currency they control. Instead of being something you offer freely, it becomes something they expect and demand. And because manipulators are rarely satisfied, the requests grow. What started as a small favor turns into a bigger one, and before long you're questioning how you got into this position where your boundaries feel blurred and your generosity feels abused. You start resenting the very act of giving, not because generosity is wrong, but because it's being twisted into something it was never meant to be. Over time, you begin to see the pattern. Whenever you're around them, you leave feeling drained or taken advantage of. The gratitude feels shallow or rehearsed, and often it's followed quickly by another request. If you ever try to push back, they might guilt you, saying you've changed or that you don't care anymore. They may even compare you to others who help them without hesitation to make you feel like you're failing them. It's not a fair exchange, it's emotional leverage, and the more you give into it, the stronger their control becomes. What makes manipulators so dangerous is that they don't just take from you, they condition you. They train you to second-guess your instincts, to question whether your boundaries are unreasonable, and to doubt whether saying no makes you a bad person. That conditioning keeps you in the cycle because instead of walking away, you convince yourself that maybe this time it's different. But manipulators rarely change their approach. They only adjust it to whatever keeps you hooked. And until you recognize the difference between genuine need and calculated manipulation, your kindness will remain a tool in their hands instead of a strength in yours. People who drain your energy but never respect your boundaries are some of the most difficult to deal with because they don't just take your time, they take your peace. They show up when it's convenient for them, they call when you've made it clear you're busy, and they push past the limits you've set as if those limits don't even exist. At first, it may seem harmless, just small interruptions or little requests that don't feel like much, but over time, you notice a pattern where your needs are consistently overlooked while theirs are always front and center. What makes this behavior so exhausting is that it slowly erodes your sense of control. You begin to feel like you're living on their schedule, meeting their demands, and sacrificing your own comfort to avoid conflict. And the moment you try to assert yourself, they make you feel guilty. They'll say you're being too rigid, too sensitive, or too selfish, all in an attempt to keep you available to them. That guilt becomes a weapon, and if you're not careful, it convinces you that protecting your energy is wrong, when in reality, it's the only thing keeping you balanced. Boundaries are what keep relationships healthy. They're not walls, they're guidelines that let people know how to treat you and how much access they have to your time and energy. But when someone refuses to respect those boundaries, what they're really saying is that their needs matter more than your well-being. And if you continue to allow it, the relationship becomes one-sided, with you constantly bending while they continue to take. The longer this dynamic lasts, the more drained you become. You notice yourself avoiding their calls, feeling anxious around their presence, or carrying resentment that wasn't there before. That resentment builds not because you don't care about them, but because caring has turned into a burden instead of a choice. And once caring feels like a burden, it stops being love and starts being obligation. That's the cost of letting someone ignore your boundaries. It strips away the joy of connection and replaces it with exhaustion.